through the air. And if you listen carefully now, you will hear. This could be the first trumpet, might as well be the last. Many more will have to suffer, many more will have to die. Don't ask me why. Things are not the way they used to be. Don't tell no lies. One and all must face reality now. I try to find an answer to all the questions they ask. I know that it's impossible to go living through the past. Don't tell no lies. There's a natural mystic blowing through the air. Can't keep them down. If you listen carefully now, you will hear. Howdy. Can you tell why I like Bob Marley? Think he's kind of prophetic? Anywho, here's what's up. This video is to accompany a study aid. And it's my first attempt at working the study aids in combination this way with the written work and a video. So bear with me. If you're unfamiliar with the Urantia book to a large degree, I recommend just reading the study aid first. You find the link, of course, below. Read through it and then listen. If you're familiar with the Urantia book, it may be just as good to listen first and then go to the notes. I don't know what you want to do. But I'm not going to take the time to read all of the passages. That would, I think, just take too long and not be interesting enough for you. So I'm going to just highlight issues and ideas that aren't specifically expressed in the study notes, but are supported by it, of course. So the topic of the day, Christ, Michael, and Jewish Messiah, is a good start, is to address the issue of paucity of terminology. We haven't been creative enough in our thinking and in the development of words, terms, to express the complexity of ideas and circumstances that we're dealing with. The Urantia book uses the word paucity 3 times, and the third time just nails the issue. I will read this. Paucity of terminology, together with the sentimental retention of olden nomenclature, is often provocative of the failure to understand the true significance of the evolution of religious concepts. Well, if that doesn't speak to the issues related to Messiah and Christ, people get so opinionated about this because of their beliefs that when it comes to Socrates' wisdom, that the beginning of wisdom is the definition of terms, we forget that this is a 2-stage process. Stage 1 is to define your own terminology within the context of your communication well enough so that people have a chance of understanding you as you intend to be understood. But just because we define terms well and consistently use them in the context of our own communication, that doesn't give us any right to require someone else to use those words the same way. And this is where we run into so much trouble. And we especially run into this type of trouble when we're not inventing enough terms to address the complexity of ideas. And then we try to, stuff way too much meaning into too few words. So I think that with words like Christ being a translation of Messiah, this is a great example of a type of problem. And the reason for this study aid in this supporting video is so that we can learn to have more creative conversations with each other. There's really new conversations to have. There's new thoughts to exchange. There's thoughts that people haven't even been able to consider because no one's really bringing forward enough terminology in an eloquent enough way to manage the complexities of the topic. And so that's what, this really gets into, is appreciating that we started with a word Messiah in Hebrew, but, this one word that was ill-defined at the time simply because people had different beliefs about it. They had a general idea what they were talking about, but there were different interpretations of it. And those different interpretations did not lead to a whole bunch of different phrases related to Messiah that we tend to use and have facility with. And, we just sort of ran it like, well, I think this about Messiah, and you think that about Messiah. And then Jesus came along. And then the world was invited to have an opinion about what used to be more strictly just a Jewish concern. And then we got the development of Jewish Messiah as a way to address the fact that the prophecies were not completely fulfilled by Jesus coming here. And this was widely acknowledged at the beginning, especially because they expected Jesus to come back soon and fulfill the rest of the prophecies. So this whole issue of yet unfulfilled prophecies, of course, raises all kinds of concerns and challenges in different belief systems, and this is where we've got an opportunity as Urantia book readers with an expanded understanding in cosmology to take more of a leadership position in structuring thoughts and ideas so that we can all communicate with each other more effectively, no matter what our beliefs are. So there's a number of quotes there that you can check out that acknowledge how much trouble Jesus had with this topic of what's Messiah mean, what's my relationship to it, and he didn't want to touch it. At the end of the day, we're left with statements like, never again did Jesus, wholly deny that he was the Messiah. He decided to leave the final untangling of this complicated situation to the outworking of the Father's will. We also have, he had decided to refrain from further efforts to convince them that he was not the Messiah. He now proposed boldly to reveal to them what he is, and then to ignore their determination to persist in regarding him as the Messiah. So from a Urantia book perspective, clearly Jesus had trouble with the word too, and it's not because he wasn't bright enough or, you know, didn't have the authority to have something to say about it. He inherited a mess, and a mess is a mess. There's this one word, and people had a bunch of different beliefs about it, and they were very opinionated about it, and still are. So the Urantia book helps us get started with this. I just want to point out, like, not only do we have these, the new phrase Christ Michael from the Urantia book as a addition to Jewish Messiah, which was an attempt to acknowledge the differences of opinion that came about with the different mixing of cultures and belief systems that occurred once Jesus showed up. But I want to point out, I just think how it's so extraordinary that we even have one instance where, in quotes, the authors of the Urantia book used the phrase lesser Christ to refer to some of the very high orders of sonship who do what Jesus did for this planet on other planets. And to put it in quotes, I think, is a way of reflecting on or honoring that in the Christian tradition that's like oxymoronic to lesser Christ. It's just not where they go. But here we have encouragement to just think about getting some new terminology going and loosening up our understanding of what words mean, and to try to evolve terminology in a way that's really going to be useful to us and help us expand our thinking and identify wider aspects of reality. So going to the issue of anointment and how this relates to history and its unfolding and the organization of the universe, right? We've got persons, we've got roles, and we've got circumstances. And in this context of persons, roles, and circumstances, there's this concept of anointing, of Messiah, of Christ. What is the essence of that word? Is that the essence is that it establishes that there's a social hierarchy of some type going on and for some type of religious purpose. That's what this word anointment is useful for, functionally. So the Urantia revelation uses the word vicegerency in relationship of the Father to the Son. And this vicegerency comes up in the parables where you've got the landlord, and then the servants of the landlord go to collect the rent, and then the son goes. And this whole sequence of ordered social hierarchies and representatives is in our religious tradition just like it's in life. That's how life works all the time when it comes to getting stuff done. So I think we need to, on a certain level, demystify the word that way and remember just the essence of what we're talking about. Is we're talking about social structures regarding authority and giving agency, or passing down authority along a social hierarchy for the purpose of getting things done. So the first one, from eternity to time, is the vicegerency of the Father to Michael, the Creator sons, and then the Michael sons immediately engage in a process of additional vicegerency, giving authority to others. We've got the Verondadeks and the Lenondadeks, and then we've got the Melchizedeks to function in emergencies. So all of these are different types of anointment, we could think of it. So we could, if you check out the notes, you'll see I created some categories for this to help us keep track. I've got 6 categories. The eternity time anointment, that's the Father to the Son, to Michael. Then we've got Michael administrative anointments, that's like to the Verondadeks, Lenondadeks, Melchizedeks. We've got mortal administrative anointments, that's like when the planetary prince comes with his staff of 100 and 100 mortals come together with the staff and exchange genetics and get to partake of the tree of life, and they're so well anointed they go from mortal to immortal. Pretty cool. Then we've got crisis administrative anointments. So that's like when Melchizedek came during the times of Abraham. And by staying for 94 years, he established for humanity his anointment, his authority, his superhuman qualities. And then there's also, beyond crisis administrative anointment, there's mortal crisis anointment. So we've got Amadon working with Van in a special capacity where his status was preserved, but under some different circumstances. And then there's also heralding anointments. So Elizabeth had a visitation from Gabriel, and Zechariah had the dream, and we had a similar pattern going on with Jesus. And so those types of anointments had a certain protocol related to that specific circumstance. We've got the question of another and greater John the Baptist, and what type of anointment process or protocol would be related to that. And that's a great topic, and of course I relate myself to it in personal ways and take that up in a different topical study. So I just want to, acknowledge that as a placeholder that it is, and leave it to the other topical study to go more into that. So, this is a way of, I just created 6 categories there for discussing anointment. I'm not trying to really invent new terminology here. I don't think we've culturally developed our conversation about this enough to really try to nail things down too much. But I do believe, first step is to take what the Urantia book has given us and run with it. We are instructed in the Urantia book that we're not supposed to sit on truth. And in this instance, it seems very clear that we've got a paucity of language issue going on. We have encouragement, or by example, and within quotes, just plain encouragement, the lesser Christ. But we've got the authors of the Urantia book really promoting the development of additional terminology to manage these complexities. And so that's how I ask you to, take this in. I'm not trying to be overly formalistic with these ideas and these categories, but I certainly do want to get the conversation started. I think it's useful to think in terms of timelines and how they intersect, because it creates so much additional complexity for us and makes conversations difficult that way. And we've got teachings that interassociate these different timelines. So just to go over them, touch on them each quickly, we've got negative planetary developments. A crisis can precipitate the arrival of an emergency visitation, an emergency anointment. Positive planetary developments, the fruition of an age, brings about the need for a new visitation, a new type of anointment. The termination of the Lucifer rebellion in a way that restores the circuits is a timeline independent from our world but related to our world, that will eventually impact our world, but the problem that gets started here, it's not going to get fixed here, and eventually we're going to be given back what was taken away. We were quarantined, we lost communication, and communication will be restored. And the development of the appropriateness of that restoration is its own timeline. It may get coordinated with other things somehow, of progressive planetary developments, or Michael's promised return. Who knows, right? How, and that's a fourth timeline there, is that we have Jesus promising to return. So negative planetary developments, positive planetary developments, full termination of the Lucifer rebellion, and Jesus promising to return. If that isn't going to create a mess of concepts, terminologies, projections of possibilities of what might happen, when, why, where, how, geez, I understand why this is such a difficult topic. It seems obviously a difficult topic. I think one of the most important things we can do when it comes to talking to non-Urantia book readers is to remind them that with generations of lifelong study amongst faithful people who have really worked hard and looked beyond the four corners of the Bible to a certain degree, people don't agree. People have all kinds of different thoughts about this stuff. And it really, in that sense, demonstrates why it's not a good idea to get too opinionated about the right way to define terminology and then try and push it on other people. It's no way to win friends and influence people. It's no way to develop quality conversation, because it just, creates a battleground of define the word this way, no, define the word that way. And, it's really just fine if we're talking to ourselves, but if we want to talk with each other, we got to loosen that up and find a way to adapt and evolve to meet the need. And so, I think it's one of these peculiar things where Christianity has been remarkably uncreative. And that gives us an opportunity to say something new. And when I say uncreative, what I mean is we've got these traditions about Lucifer and Satan, the devil, and we have general understandings that people and beings do things. And if they become disloyal, they get replaced. We do this in life all the time on the human level. for some strange reason, there isn't a lot of discussion about who's going to replace Lucifer and what he was doing before he started causing so much trouble. Was he just like playing a harp and then one day created havoc in heaven and on earth? You know, it's really not consistent with sensibilities or the religious traditions either, which seem to have him placed, you know, in some type of role. But there's just so little real creativity around it because there's so little good information available without the Urantia book to, you know, structure ideas with this. So I think that we've got some wonderful opportunities here to bridge a lot of gaps in communication and evolve our cultural understanding of our circumstances if we'll just loosen up about how we define these terms and recognize that we've put ourselves needlessly in a difficult situation by not inventing enough new terms to address the breadth of issues and concepts and persons, roles, and circumstances that we need to consider when we think about these issues of the day. So thank you for your time and attention today. I hope this was helpful for understanding the study notes and stimulates your thoughts and helps you have better conversations with people. God bless. Bye-bye.